Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm Greg Stanton, Mayor of the City of Phoenix, and we are here today with great news for the most vulnerable in our city. Tragic natural disasters and emergency events can devastate our community and create limited access for those in need. Most recently, we've seen the tragic earthquakes in Nepal take the lives of as many as 10,000 people. We can also never forget that Hurricane Katrina, where many people were not able to leave. In fact, some ended up here in Phoenix and decided to call this their home after the tragedy of Hurricane Katrina. However, others were not so lucky. More than a third of the population were physically unable to evacuate before Katrina hit because of disability. Some did not survive. We cannot pretend that Phoenix is immune from this type of tragic situation. That is why we have to do a better job to ensure that our most vulnerable, including those with disabilities and the elderly, are fully taken care of. Phoenix is taking action to make sure there are accommodations for the disabled community to get to safety in emergency circumstances. We are revising our emergency operations plan, which provides the framework for how the city will respond to this type of crisis. We could not do this successfully without the guidance from our partners at the Disability Rights Advocates and the Arizona Center for Disability Law. The work that they have done across the country to ensure that the most vulnerable are cared for has been tremendous. So the city will soon enter into a contract with Baptist Child and Family Services Emergency Management Division, BCFS, to revise our emergency operations plan. It is a nonprofit national leader in emergency preparedness. BCFS has responded to major incidents in the United States, such as September 11th tragedy, the H1N1 flu pandemic, tornadoes, fires, and earthquakes. The new plan will take some time. To do this right, it's going to take some time. It could take up to 2 years to complete, but we are going to do this right. City staff will partner with the community to educate, train, and conduct exercises. When we are done, we can be sure that if there were an emergency, we hope and pray there is not, but if there were an emergency in our city, in our community, that everyone in our city will be fully taken care of. It is the right thing to do. Next to the podium to say a few words, representing the City Council as chair of our City Council Public Safety Subcommittee, is Councilman Michael Nowakowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to thank the mayor for all his efforts in making sure that people with disability are taken care of. Also, our city manager, Ed Zerker, that's here with us today also. As many as 50 million people in this country have a disability. In Phoenix, nearly 1 out of 10 individuals have a disability. We need to make sure that we take care of those that are in need. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, folks. Phoenix has taken a great step in recent years to provide support to the disability community. The city recently adopted a new accessibility icon showing that the disability community is on the go and is determined also. 2 years ago, the city hired the first full-time ADA coordinator, Peter Fisher. At least 40% of our staff is now trained on how to communicate with people with disabilities, hard hearing, and deaf. The city has built on a really strong Mayor's Commission of Disability Issues, which is comprised of volunteers from all different walks of life that are available to help us understand what the needs are of these individuals with disability. The city has done emergency training with national, state, and county organizations to deal with the disability community. But we can do better, and that's what this is all about. I'd like to introduce to you right now is a strong advocate, making sure that we as a city of Phoenix are doing the right thing and that we can do better, even more so than just creating these committees, but we can actually provide more services. And that strong advocate is Christina Wang. Oh.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Mayor Stanton, Councilman Nowakowski, and the City of Phoenix for inviting us here today. My name is Christine Chuang, and I'm a senior staff attorney from Disability Rights Advocates, or DRA. DRA is one of the leading nonprofit disability rights legal centers in the nation. We work in a variety of areas, including healthcare, employment, transportation, and voting. We provide free representation to people with all types of disabilities to reform systems and practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. One of our priorities is ensuring that the lives and safety of people with disabilities are protected in cities and counties' emergency plans. We have worked with multiple cities throughout the nation, including Oakland, Los Angeles, and New York City, to improve their emergency plans on behalf of people with disabilities. Through our work, we have seen the impact of what good emergency planning can do for people with disabilities. People who use wheelchairs no longer fear that they will be left behind when there are plans in place to assist them. People with hearing disabilities no longer worry that they will not hear emergency notifications when there are warnings in alternate formats. People with vision disabilities will know that there are appropriate transportation resources in place to evacuate them to emergency shelters. We are very pleased that the City of Phoenix has made people with disabilities a priority. Our collaborative work can be and should be a model for cities across the country as they respond to improve their emergency plans on behalf of people with disabilities. DRA is continuing its work across the country, and we look forward to pointing to Phoenix as an example for how cities and the disability community can work together. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Sarah Cater from the Arizona Center for Disability Law.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sarah Cater. I am a staff attorney at the Arizona Center for Disability Law, ACDL. I also want to thank Mayor Stanton, Councilman Nowakowski, and the City of Phoenix for having us here today. ACDL is a nonprofit public interest law firm dedicated to advocating for the rights of individuals with a wide range of physical, mental, psychiatric, sensory, and cognitive disabilities. This year marks ACDL's 20th anniversary, and our vision is a society that focuses on people's abilities rather than disabilities. Our mission is to advocate for the legal rights of persons with disabilities to be free from abuse, neglect, and discrimination, and to gain access to services, maximizing independence and achieving equality. Part of what we do is work to ensure that persons with disabilities have access to all of the same programs as everyone else, and emergency planning is a perfect example of that. Ultimately, keeping all people safe in times of crisis is a basic human need. There are at least 130,000 people who identify as having a disability in the City of Phoenix. This is a population that cannot be ignored during emergencies, and when it has, results have been deadly. This is why we are thrilled the City of Phoenix is taking these steps to make the city's emergency planning accessible to all. The changes that will be implemented will be apparent in not only large emergencies, but also small-scale incidents like heat emergencies. The benefits of this partnership will be felt not only by residents with disabilities, but also by the whole community. This is our neighborhood. This is our city. It has been a pleasure working with the city to ensure that the needs of people with disabilities are included in all aspects of its emergency planning, including sheltering, evacuation, transportation, and communication. We are grateful for this collaborative effort with the City of Phoenix and look forward to this continued relationship. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Phil Pangrazio, President and CEO of the Arizona Bridge to Independent Living.
Good morning, everybody. Emergency preparedness is something that we all need to be concerned about, even those of us living here in Phoenix. Although natural disasters of a major scale are rare in Phoenix, they could occur, or even worse, something man-made such as a terrorist attack or a prolonged power outage in the midst of summer could be devastating to all of our citizens. If an event did occur, what would most people do? Well, maybe they'd quickly locate to an emergency shelter. Maybe you'd hop in your car and leave town. If you were injured, maybe you could get yourself to the hospital. But for people with disabilities and functional needs like the elderly, it isn't quite that easy. At ABLE, we've always worked in partnership with the City of Phoenix to support people with disabilities and empower them to live independently in the community and be equal members of our community. Therefore, there's really no reason why people with disabilities and others with functional needs shouldn't have the same opportunities and resources and supports available to them as everyone else that are needed to survive a major emergency situation and be supported with dignity and respect in times of crisis. That's why what the City of Phoenix is doing to revise its emergency operations plan is so important. It means that all people with disabilities, whether you can't walk or you can't hear or you can't see or you can't speak for yourself or otherwise have some sort of functional need, you won't be forgotten in a time of crisis. I would like to thank the city for making this important investment and including the disability community in this important partnership and commitment. It is the right thing to do, and I want to thank the city, the mayor, and the rest of city council and the city manager. Thank you all.
Thank you, Phil, and everyone else for those kind comments. The culture of the city of Phoenix is always asked the question, how can we do better? This is a great city, and I think we have wonderful programs and partnerships with so many of the organizations represented here. But that doesn't mean we can't always do better. And I'm really thankful that disability rights advocates, the Arizona Center for Disability Law, and others brought to our attention that we can do better when it comes to our emergency operations plan. It's the culture of myself, Councilman Nowakowski, our city manager, to embrace that, to embrace the opportunity to do even better, because a great city is always asking the question, how can we serve the people of this community even better? So that is our announcement here today, that enter this wonderful partnership with these organizations to improve our emergency operations plan so that it is fully accessible, make sure that all people in our community are thought of and fully prepared for in case of emergency. And now we'll take any questions that you may have about the plan. I'll take a first stab at it, but anybody else that may want to take a stab at it as well. You are exactly right. By the way, I spend time in Washington, D.C., convincing our friends in Congress that the heat here in Phoenix, Arizona can be just as deadly as the cold weather back east. They need to adjust some of their funding formulas for emergency services. A lot of it goes to take care of people who deal with the extreme cold. We need our fair share of the resources here to manage the issue of extreme heat. And we have seen, unfortunately, in past summers where extreme heat has occurred, and equally as important, the temperature if it doesn't go down at night, so the body temperatures aren't able to cool down at night, that can be deadly. Part of this plan, obviously, will to make sure that people that are under those circumstances have a mechanism to reach out and ask for help. You heard earlier from one of our advocates about better communication methods, particularly for those that may be hard of hearing, maybe those that are blind or near blind, et cetera. Ways that they can reach out and we can reach out to them to ask, because that's part of our plan, is to not wait till somebody makes a call, but to actually do well checks on people. Obviously, all of that will be considered in this plan. As was mentioned, this is not just for massive disasters that might affect thousands or tens of thousands of people at once, although we have to prepare for that. This is also to deal with smaller emergencies of the nature that you described. Chief, I don't know if you want to talk about from the fire perspective how they're dealing with extreme heat and how this plan might more benefit people from extreme heat, the disabled community, please.
Yeah, I concur with the mayor that we understand that from a heat stress management standpoint, it is vital that we engage not only the employees of the city of Phoenix, especially your first responders, to be able to recognize those when we do have those emergencies too, but that we work collaboratively with the disabilities groups within the city. Also to engaging the private sector, those areas that are responsible, those homes, those associations that are responsible for long-term care facilities, for independent living, those folks. Another thing that we know is very important too on the emergency management side is preventative measures, education on the front end. So what are we as a city doing on the front end to educate the disability community to make sure that if we do run into an emergency such as a heat wave or an emergency like that we are providing them resources, education, and the training on the front end so they can survive for a certain amount of time too. So we are making sure that we're involving the disability community, that we're training our city employees to make sure that we can address these on the front end and look at it from a preventative standpoint too. What we do is that from from the fire department and also too from the city's standpoint too, is that we work very closely with those agencies, with those locations too, is that they are meeting code when it comes to backup generators, that they are meeting the requirements if they are living in a care facility too. And then also too is that one conversation that we've also had yesterday too is that we're working with the caregivers. We're working with the caregivers because as Phil referred to, many times we can get into the car and we can leave too, but we want to be able to make sure is that they do have those 3 days. We always talk about a 72-hour window where anybody in any type of emergency can survive any type of emergency too, but especially in the disability community, is that we're providing that information too on the. But yeah, we do work closely with our code enforcement employees in the city of Phoenix. This is going to be a collaborative effort too with Maricopa County. We're making sure that any type of a plan that we engage with the city of Phoenix is that we're working with our other partners in the region too. In the city of Phoenix as well, we have a very robust 911 response system where we do just not stop at the borders of Phoenix. We have a automatic aid system where we can tap into the other resources because we know that if there is a large-scale emergency, it will not stop at the borders of any one city too, so we can tap into those resources as well. What we have built within the city of Phoenix in the Maricopa County region too is that we have the ability where we can target a certain area where we know there's an emergency going on. We have a reverse 911 system where we could actually target and we can call those affected residents in that area and we can provide them communications and information too by us providing them information too. That has been very useful and very helpful for us in certain situations. And we do this on a daily basis. If there's a chemical leak on an emergency scene too, we can provide that information. We can target those residents in that area, and we can provide them that information so they can either shelter in place, or if we do recognize that they need to be evacuated, then we can deploy our resources adequately.
Let me jump in on this one. We found out a few years ago when we did have extreme heat, and many in our homeless community unfortunately died because of extreme heat. Other people died who were actually living in their homes. Their power unfortunately had been lost, and for whatever reason they hadn't reached out to seek help. And that's one message we want to get across here today is if you're in a situation where you've lost your power, you need help, reach out. Don't have any engage in any kind of false pride. If you think you know a neighbor that might need help, reach out as well. That we are here to help, both through our fire department, our police department, our human services department. We will do a well check on a neighbor that you think might be in trouble. But the truth is that this is not a government program alone. Emergency management safety is a community-wide effort. That's in part why when it was brought to our attention that our plan needed to improve to better embrace the needs of the disabled community. We understand, obviously members of the disabled community are fully members of our community and need to be fully thought of and prepared for in case of emergency. It takes all of us. It's not just a government thing. It is a community-wide thing. So even this summer, before we have the new plan fully in place, if you have a neighbor or a friend that may or may not have a disability that you're concerned about during times of extreme heat, which inevitably are going to come this summer, please contact us and we will check on them because their lives matter to us. Other questions? Do you want their fire number that people can call in case of emergency other than 911, or do it only be 911?
911 will probably be your best access. That's 24/7 911 response. We'll get that too. Then also too, I know that as we start to update our plan, we'll provide that other emergency information on our website too, especially in our Office of Emergency Management, Homeland Security. We can provide more information on there too.
All right, thanks for covering today's event. I also want, as mayor and on behalf of Councilman Nowakowski, thank our partners. You've already helped us a tremendous amount. I know over the next couple years as we go and dive into the details of making sure that we have the very best emergency plan in the United States of America, your support and advocacy and help is going to guide us in that direction, and we're a better city because of it. Thank you so very much. Thanks for covering today's press event.